Hey, beautiful people. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Three Pagans and a Cat. This is episode 57. I'm going to be flying solo for just a few moments tonight. So, while we're waiting for both our wayward co host and our guest to come on, I'm going to do a short prayer. The sons and daughters of Muspelheim, Hellfire itself. Hail, Nico Eldervator, Hail Eldervator. Hail. Suna, Hail Loki, Hail Glut. Logi, Hel Sart, Hel Senmora. Hail Mikkel Eldervater, Hel Eldervater. Hel Thor, Stilhal. Hel Eldest Ancestor, Stilhal. All right. The fire is lit. So I will be starting off tonight's broadcast with a session mead cider, which is a 6.2% alcohol by volume. It's 12 fluid ounces. And these are from Blom, which I believe is a Michigan-based meadery. Yes, made with Michigan honey and apples. So, hello, Melkor. So I really appreciate folks showing up tonight. So yes, anyway, to get this party started, I'm going to crack this open real quick, wherever the mead ran off to. I'm also going to be doing a mixed drink tonight, and I'm looking at the Old Fashioned by the Detroit City Distillery. Hopefully you can see that. There we go. And I'm going to mix that up in, where did my glass go? This guy. Yeah, that looks good enough. So I was really curious to try. There's this sugar-free Minute Maid stuff from the store, which I've been curious to try as a mixer because I'm trying to not carb myself to hell and back. So I've got Mango Passion, 0 sugar Minute Maid. And we'll see how this tastes. It smells good. Make sure our guests are coming in. All right, cool. All right, awesome. So I have been through quite a bit today, both in terms of work and in terms of life in general. So I am going to sit back and enjoy this really quick. Oh, that's really good. Ooh, that's really good. That's really good. Highly recommend mixing the whiskey with the Mango Passion. It sets it off real nice. Hello, Emily. Hello, Kunian. Good to see you. So one of the things that I am hoping to talk with Maleck and our guests tonight is different forms of animism and different forms that our pathways can take with regards to animism. So, for myself, I know that longtime watchers of the show will know that I have a very particular heathen, polytheist, and animist perspective. So I'm really curious to see what Diana, Rochelle, and Cinti bring to the table, and I'm really excited. They are just coming into the broadcast. If you both could give me a thumbs up if you're ready to come on in. All right, excellent. Adding you to the stage. Welcome, welcome. And
Hi.
of course, I can't hear a damn thing.
Can you hear us?
Okay. Well, that's because my audio settings put the wrong ears on. Excellent.
MICKEYMOUSE.
Now I can hear you. I'm sure that. There we go. Much better. So, how are you both?
I am a little sloshed. We may have calculated time a little bit oddly today because of kid stuff.
Understood.
And today was a long, emotionally stressful day for me, and I decided when I ordered the wrong size margarita not to send it back. So I'm very much on tap right now.
Excellent. So we pre-gamed.
A little
Good
bit,
deal.
little lot. I bought one of the super coupon books that they have in the Midwest that they'll do for fundraisers, and so we were doing field research.
Okay.
And we have a new housemate who is also magically inclined, and he is very much part of the field research.
Oh, excellent.
So, yes.
So, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you both coming. Like I said in our message, Maleck will be a few minutes late, and that's okay. If we could get a basic rundown of what your perspectives are, and we can just hop right into what we want to talk about tonight.
Okay. So I am Diana Rachel, or hi hell if I don't like you and I want to see you spit. I am Polish American, and I am an urban priestess and spirit worker. And so I describe myself as a panentheistic animist. I do believe in gods. I do not think we should be encouraging them. And I know that there are people present who've heard me get quite colorful in ways that some people would quite find what's that word that the Christians throw around? Blasphemous.
Not quite that far.
I mean,
you show respect when respect is appropriate.
And respect is not appropriate if you're showing up in my bedroom without so much as a how do you do. Boundaries, people. Boundaries.
Yeah, that's fair.
And as usual, we're starting off with you making people a little speechless as they try to process.
Hi, welcome to Diana Land. You're fucked.
Excellent. So, Suti, about your perspective and where you're coming out of.
I mean, they're nicer than I am, but they do more permanent damage.
There is that. I never really fit anywhere, so I mostly just I always kind of referred to myself as an animist, spirit worker. I've been focusing a lot on my Finnish and Sami American roots and exploring that. And I was raised in Appalachia and, well, on the border of where Appalachia turns into Appalachian. So kind of right in that range of nobody really quite knows what's going on. Down the valley from 3 Mile Island even. So it,
or
interesting things throughout my whole life. But mostly I try to keep this one alive. And now I work in mental health. So
and for me it's a team project, unfortunately, because I still, no matter how many years I've been practicing, even though I wouldn't describe myself as a chaos magician, I have that, what does this do?
Oh yeah, I guess I kind of have that. I guess I kind of have that a bit too.
I mean, yesterday I'm working in a book called The Urban Magician's Handbook right now. And so I actually included the chaos path, and it is one of the approaches.
And I pointed out a particular one from, whereabouts I was from.
So I had the bright idea of working with a hockey mascot that is basically just a cracked out Philadelphian.
Oh, Gritty.
Yes, Gritty. And excellent. I went through the whole thing, the city, I could feel the city spirit going, I want to keep you alive. I'm going to let you do this, but here's what you need to do to stay alive through this. And then after I got done running the passage, I'm looking through my house, and this thing zips in front of me and says, you didn't ask my permission. No, I did not. It's okay. You got it right. Zoom. I'm like, okay, I guess I got it right.
That's Gritty.
Yep.
That's honestly. Also, hi. Sorry I'm late. I accidentally set the time wrong, and I apologize.
Oh, we just got here 5 minutes ago.
We're late because I had a really big margarita.
Good for you. I made, per request of our last guest, I made a mixed drink, which has a hair in it because I'm genius. Dual layer drink. I don't know what to call it yet, but we'll see how it turns out.
A tan and more tan?
It's my camera doesn't pick it up well. It's like a muddy red and then like a light tan kind of.
Okay.
It's like a whiskey cherry almond drink on the bottom with a lot of like herbaceousness, and then on top is a mixed rum and tequila, almost sour. So
that sounds delightful. What kind of tequila are you using?
I am using, and actually I'm recording in a new location next to my bar, so I can do stuff like this. I am using Altos gin, or not gin, tequila, which is one of my preferreds because it's not fabulous, but it is good. And then I'm using a mix of a Mackinac Island rum and Dr. Bird rum, which is from Detroit. So,
ooh, that sounds intriguing.
Yes.
So I hadn't actually done anything besides a small prayer to fire yet. So I wasn't sure if you wanted to do the prayer.
I can. I don't have anything prepped.
I can put something together real quick if you'd like.
If you don't mind, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Pardon.
Speaking of chaos, let me just come in and wreck the show for a minute.
Nah, you didn't. Hail to the waters that lie between us, from the sky to the ground. Hail to the waters that lie between us, the rivers and lakes. Hail to the waters that lie between us, the oceans and puddles. Hail to the waters that lie between us. Saliva, blood, spit, all the oceans, all the waters, all the ways that lie between us. May we live in good harmony with you. May we live in good gable with you. May we honor our own waters and that of our neighbors. Hail, Mr. Shit, you haven't even been on the show for 10 minutes. You're already getting dragged. Maleck being chaotic? That's not in character at all.
Hi, Emily.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Also, yeah, I came on to you talking about chaos magic part and not IDing as a chaos magician, but real close. It's fine.
I mean, that is kind of...
I'm just highly
we do
curious.
what works.
I do what works. I am an animist in my heart. I am finding, especially as I am starting to connect with more of Polish practitioners and part of the Polish diaspora, I do a lot of things that are very Slavic without knowing they're Slavic.
It's kind of how I ended up really working on my Finnish roots.
And I mean, I come directly from some people that survived the Warsaw Uprising. There's just a little bit of melee in my makeup.
That makes sense.
So, since we brought you both on tonight, I guess the big things that I wanted to cover were, of course, the animism part, but also like where a lot of the metal meets the meat, because we've talked with several guests on the show about their particular practices and where those things come forward. For both of you, I know that your spirit work is really front and center in your lives because it literally touches everything you do. It's weird. It's almost like it's a lived thing.
Shocking.
Don't say.
Like, it doesn't fit in a neat, nice little box that you can just take out when you want to have the fun parties. And
you can't be a Sunday animist? Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Imagine how it was for me when I was president of the PTO.
I
really did that. Yeah.
Yeah. Really quick. Love and kisses to Diana and Cynthia. I'm so glad you're here tonight, heart. Aw. No, but I get it, because it's one of the things that always amuses me when people are like, well, what do you mean you relate to your computer as a person? Like, if I don't treat my computer right, it stops functioning. If I don't...
You tell it looks nice today and how much you appreciate everything it does. I'm petting mine now.
Right?
So way back, oh God, in the 90s, I volunteered on a grassroots political campaign with a woman running for the president of grassroots for our Democratic presidential campaign. obviously she got nowhere with it, and she happened to own the only occult New Age shop that had ever been in Crown Point, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't particularly align with what she believed, but it got me the hell away from my family while I was home on a long break. And I was like faxing things and learning about what it took to get into candidate on the ballot. And one of her employees was also like the shop manager, took me aside because the fax would never work for me and say, well, have you treated it like it's a person? Have you talked to it? Holy shit, it works.
See, I came at it from the other angle where I just kind of kept talking to stuff and I never really stopped. You know how little kids will talk to things and personalized personalized things, and then we teach them not to. I'm not saying there weren't efforts to teach me not to, but anyone who's familiar with what it means to be finished, there's a bit of what most would call stubborn that just embodies.
No.
Oh, it's a whole extra level of stubborn.
So I just never stopped. I didn't accept that things couldn't, and it always kind of struck me as odd that everyone else was saying that it was weird that I talked with the trees and the rocks.
That's not weird.
I come out of a very perhaps animist adjacent to Catholic background is probably a good way to put it, because I grew up talking to trees and rocks and stuff as a Catholic. So like when I became a pagan, it was like, oh no, this stuff all makes sense. There wasn't that push and pull of, oh, this doesn't make any sense that I've seen other people go through. It was just oh, my world just got a lot bigger. Cool.
Yeah.
I've been fairly fortunate in my dad was Catholic and didn't want his daughters raised Catholic, which is my mom was like one of those. I think she would have been a fundamentalist if women could have had the kind of importance she wanted. So she took her fundy outlooks to some of the more liberal churches.
Oh, so, excellent.
Like I totally have parental trauma, but I have almost no Christianity trauma. Because I went to the United Church of Christ, and the one that I went to like integrated good comparative religion into confirmation.
Same.
But a lot of it was we'd have church outside. They talk about, yes, this is God's house, but you remove the house, it's still God's house. So if I didn't want to worship with everyone, I could wander in the woods and nobody cared. Like it was fine. And of course, the church we had was like on a wooded lot. So there was a lot of just getting out of the long, boring sermons or, writing notes that were very unchurch-like with the other kids and passing it on the back of the program.
As you do.
Yeah, it was like a sense of, yes, there's God, but God's not in here. Like there's a community energy. And I enjoy visiting Catholic churches. I don't sit through the services because I'm too much of a feminist not to eventually start chucking hymnals at the priest or whoever's saying the things. I am feral. But I like going in there because there's this nothing to do with the misogynistic bullshit energy that hangs out in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it is partly that communal energy. It is partly the things that are channeled through the saints or whatever the saints used to be. But there is something very wholesome there. It's just not usually coming out of the priest's mouths.
It depends on the priest.
It does depend on the priest. There are some good ones out there.
There are good Catholics out there, and I mean that with sincerity. I have some friends who are Catholics, as do you, and
I do, yeah.
They really do epitomize a good person. So I know it's entirely possible. It doesn't happen that often, in my experience.
All right, so
not trying to bash, just I haven't come across that many.
No, lived experiences are valid.
Yeah,
I think that a lot of it comes down to and this was my conundrum coming out of eclectic Wicca when I did, is a lot of people want these communal groups that have these shared values, but there's a certain point where you may not be able to live consistently with the values that they've been established as necessary to being part of the group. Which once I stepped out of that, I started stepping even deeper into the animism that had always been present with me. And it was just it's easier for me to live values that feel like right in my body if I'm not trying to force myself to integrate with a group and shared belief. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
And then as far as like the chaos magic goes, it was just I worked with energy very directly and just found a way to integrate that with the animism.
I just think that magic should be allowed to be fun.
Well, yes.
It should be allowed to be fun because a lot of our polarization comes from taking some of the wrong things too seriously.
Yeah.
And the other part is the fun is what sustains us for the serious stuff, and people don't understand that that's not candy, it's nutrients.
Yeah.
Right. As though we're not supposed to appreciate and enjoy and actually be empowered to do more of the same. Like, no, you need that. That's vital energy.
I mean, I'm sure some people aren't supposed to, and some people are supposed to toil and deal with some level of suffering, particularly when they've done things to have earned that. But you know, at some point, yeah, it's still unless it's like an act of going punishment or consequence of failing to uphold your oath or what have you. You know, it's a why are you just suffering?
I mean,
find something to enjoy. Find ways to bring joy into your life. It does wonders for your health.
It's also there's that toxic behavior of how can you be talking about this trivial thing when there's like X suffering in the world? Like that's why. So you can deal with that suffering. So you can do something about it.
Right. The opposite of hope is not hate; it's apathy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like that's what destroys movements. Political movements often in the end is. It's not the hate or the opposition often that fuels things as much as anything. It's you just get tired. You just can't.
Yeah.
And there's few things quite as energizing as a good hard laugh. And it doesn't even always have to be at someone suffering after they decided to invade my bedroom.
I feel like there's a story behind that, and
there totally is.
I'm not 100% sure I want to know, but I also definitely want to know.
There's multiple stories.
If it wasn't quite so long, I'd tell her to hit the doorbell on our bedroom door.
So yeah, Cinti and I both do psychopomp work, and this is something like I can't even remember when it started for me. I was born with second sight. So like my getting into the occult at all was looking for the off switch.
God, when did that start?
And so between the two of us, especially, and it started early this year, normally it doesn't start until just after autumn equinox. This year it started way earlier, where I would come into our bedroom and there would be like a line going out our bedroom, down the stairs of our house. And so this time of year, because there's a certain time where you move things on and you can't do anything, but things will show up when they show up. And so it's turned into a routine of like, I am carnival barking as I am going to get our coffee in the morning. If you're here for me, this is where you go. If you're here for Cinti, this is where you go. If you argue with me, I have a special place for you with the death goddess that I work with. And then we actually have a Halloween style doorbell that I charged up. So if things get particularly intransigent, I push the button and they go wherever it will be amusing to me for them to go.
It just starts off with like a haunting voice, like shouting out, "I see you."
Very fun.
Yeah, like I was coming in from like a nice night out and there's something arguing with me about, I can't be dead. That is a you problem. Bye.
Get out. Nope.
Yes.
I am not here. I am here to take you where you need to go. I am not here to convince you that you need to go there.
Oh, yeah. It's not even that time yet. It's the go wait out there. We'll argue on the way.
Well, that's how Cinti does it. Things don't get to argue with me because I just don't have time for that shit anymore.
Oh, I don't argue. They just yak at me while I'm...
Yeah, well, it's also I kind of realized that the whole love and light and good vibes only doesn't deal with shit that needs to be dealt with. And some of these spirits are coming from modern times where they're expecting what they saw on the ghost shows, and that is not how I operate.
No.
And they're very surprised and sometimes try to argue with me about that. And I'm just like, oh, it's where you're supposed to go. Again, that's a you problem. Bon voyage. My bedside manner is terrible. I am much nicer as a tarot reader unless you ask me to really tell you the truth.
See, that's what gets me in trouble is every time we do reading, I say, just fuck my shit up. And then they do. And it's fine.
I mean, you did beg for it, so.
Well, I mean, like, Diana's going to be biased, and I know you understand where Sarenth would rate things, and if it's okay if I point at you a bit, Sarenth, how would you describe getting a reading from me? And realize that I am typically more polite when I'm asked to be very honest about whatever it says and just say it like it is than Diana can be. So this will give you a scale for her as well.
So you're very direct and to the point, and I would say you're almost clipped because there's this just the facts kind of feeling with the way that you read people when you're like that. Whereas if people ask Diana to take the gloves off, the gloves come all the way off and get your shit rocked. Come on, let's go. It's a very interesting contrast because they are both very effective means of reading. But I think sometimes the objectives that your spirits are going for are so very different there, because usually when people are coming to you with this kind of thing, they're trying to settle out some disagreement or something with regards to you being Cinti. When people are seeking you out, they're trying to get to some sort of deep-rooted issue, and being more clipped and more formal, the more you get into that is helpful to keep them from spiking.
Yep.
However, when people approach Diana for this kind of stuff, they have already fucked around and found out, or they're trying to figure out how to unfuck their situation. And sometimes that staccato of "you fucked up and here's how" is really needed to bring somebody out of the orifice into which their head should never go.
I mean, you did get to experience the asshole deck.
Yes, I did.
And I'm thinking, I am a yoga teacher, so there are some people where that is a goal, and I just do not discuss that with them. But that is unrelated to this.
I have a deck that will say things in kind of the most, like, you need to hear it, but did you have to say it in that much of the asshole?
Right.
And like, there just is not a kind way to interpret what comes out of that deck.
Yes, this is the downside of animism and tarot, is you get the whole personality.
When Diana does it, she comes at it with these decks that are very pretty and very nice, but
they cut the crap.
Yeah.
They look very pretty and they present nice. So I used to read with the Salvador Dali deck, and some people just found it too disturbing, especially when I was reading in a rich white lady shop in California. So I switched to Tarot of the Spirit because it looks vaguely indigenous without doing any cultural appropriation whatsoever. It's pretty impressive. So it made them feel good, and it still told them what they needed to hear. And then usually they wouldn't get mad for like 2 days because it was so pretty.
Or when I do a bone reading for somebody where it's not shadow work, it's more like shining a light on where your shadows are in relation to whatever issue they're choosing to tell you about, whether you asked about it or not. And I think I've had one person not cry when I've done a bone reading. Not that I tried to. And it was the only person I've ever had where when I dropped the bones, it was, you're doing good. I don't want to charge you for this. Look, things are going good. This is going good. You're doing right there. That's good. This is good. You're looking at this right. This thing over here that's not very healthy. You're actually dealing with this in a healthy way. So you're good. And I wouldn't take the guy's money. And he was like, well, that was kind of a letdown. I'm like, I get that, but you're good.
Things are fine. Yeah,
it's not the reason that people go and get readings, so that makes sense to me.
Yeah, he thought it was entertainment.
Yeah, you don't come to me. You come to me to be read to filth, and if I had known that phrase 10 years ago, that would totally be my tarot brand. You know, I go under the Spirited Witch. That does make sense with me, but read to filth would pretty much just cut right through everything people need to expect.
Yep. So really quick. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I use different divination tools for talking to different spirits. I've got my rune set, which is just kind of whoever needs to talk to, which is usually what I use with clients because it's their spirits and that's a pretty neutral medium. But I warn people beforehand if I'm using, This deck is for talking to Lupa. Be aware. This deck is for talking to Frigga and Freya. That's a different kind of be aware. This bone set is what I used to talk to the pack spirits. You probably don't want to talk to them because they don't even know what pull punches mean. So like, you almost certainly don't want to talk to them. I'm gonna just stick to. Oh, you do. Oh, okay.
When anyone listening, look, when a spirit worker who is serious looks at you and says you don't want this,
believe that.
At least pause and think and truly consider why the person who is a serious spirit worker that you are coming to is telling you you don't want this before you go, oh yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And if you're, I can't speak for other readers because everyone has their different specialty. If you're coming to me, be ready to solve the problem or you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
100%.
So
I wanted to throw up some quick comments. So the Puritan underlay of purity, morality, good must require personal suffering is still very prevalent in the American mindset. Sacrifice, to my mind, is not the same as suffering, and I'll agree with that. Though I think we often equate the two. There's no overlap, but I don't see them as equivalent.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And then Sarenth's Shadowrun deck is a harsh oh yeah, the Shadowrun deck I have is fucking gnarly. It is red in tooth and claw and will fuck your shit up.
I haven't heard Shadowrun in years. That's
in my experience, your Shadowrun deck is the nicer of the things you read me with. So that's telling.
This is fair.
We are here. That is telling a lot about you there, and I just met you, so.
So actually, I have a story to tell with this. This is not the first time you met me. I was in the room when you and Cinti first met, but I immediately left, and no one remembers I was there because I was in such a haze. I was barely conscious, but I immediately walked out of the room. As soon as
you were talking with Sarenth while I waited.
Yep.
Because the things I was working with told me to wait for everyone else to be done.
Yep. 100%.
And then we got into our deep conversation where we lost track of time.
Yep.
Yes, I thought that was you.
Yep. It was me. I was in the room. It was very funny.
I was jet lagged and still trying to learn how to be civil, and obviously nothing has taken since then.
It's completely fine. I was having such a spiritual revelatory night that I was barely conscious. Like I spent the next 20 minutes wandering around the hotel looking for people I knew because I needed support. Couldn't find anyone and just stumbled into Sarenth and spent the next hour while Cinti and Sarenth talked, just twitching underneath Sarenth's wolfskin.
Yep. I thought that was you.
Yep.
Okay. I was waiting for a pause to ask if you ended up wandering over and finding us talking in a hallway.
That was me.
See,
that was right after we both independently and unknowing of each other at the time apologized for being rude to Diana,
which was very appreciated. Anywhere else with masked people in anything pagan, I would have had 2 enemies for life. So I think this worked out quite well.
Yeah.
And given that I was jet lagged and so you're there when I told them to get the fuck out of my room?
Yeah. And I was already heading out the door as you were getting into it. And I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here regardless.
Wait, how long of a conversation were we having if he was still on the way out when I started talking with you?
Long enough I was getting annoyed.
I know
probably a good 20-30 minutes.
But
it was, I set a timer for 20 minutes.
Wow, you were really out of it if it took that long to get out of that room.
I was quite out of it.
No, not judgment, acknowledgement.
No. Yeah, no, 100%. I was extremely out of it. It was I won't say it was a bad night because I learned a lot of important things, but it was not a fun night. We love the pack deck, teeth and all. Yeah, it was one of those nights. And pagans make friends in the most interesting ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, if you were there when Sarenth finally translated what the small what'd you say at the time? The small Finnish lady, which we ended up realizing was actually Sami, was yelling at him for me to get off my ass and go do my damn job.
Oh,
I did actually end up doing that.
yeah.
I'm glad to hear it.
I believe she was one of your ancestors, your Desir, who
One
also
of the grandmothers.
yeah, one of the grandmothers who may have been in Nuade. I don't remember. I am mispronouncing that. I know.
If I remember correctly, that was one of my Sami ancestors.
Yes, that is correct. No, yeah,
Oh.
literally yelling at me. You tell them at the time it was yeah. You tell them this now. They're not listening. Yeah, I understand.
I've worked with them. There has been wisdom I have learned from them since living with Sinti, but some of it is also comes back to the Diana. You are very hard to keep alive.
This is one of the things I actually was really hoping we could like dig into having you both on the show, because it's one of the things that isn't often talked about is like what it's like having a spirit worker dynamic with partners.
I know, and we just had some interesting internet conversation, including David Shee, where we were talking about how it's very different from working with covens or with groups, especially when one of the partners is a shaman, because shamans have special needs. And spirit workers, we have different needs just because we often end up picking up the slack. And usually if the shaman has a partner at all, it's either an apprentice that supports them on a practical level as they learn, or it is a non-magical partner because of how much it takes.
In context of...
In your cultural context, it may be different.
No, well, that's what I was saying. In context of like in Finland, in Sápmi, yes. I don't know if I can speak if I can say that with confidence for over further into Asia.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely the people who are getting tapped, as was part of that conversation, by spirits, perhaps here in North America, like I was, it is more in line with that likelihood, but it wouldn't be as a shaman. It would be as something else, very, very similar, but very distinctly different. And I apologize for being really vague. I don't know how to... David spoke very eloquently about it in a way that just is so him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I didn't comment on it because I could not think of a way to add to that conversation.
I have posted the link in for those who are watching us on YouTube. You can follow that Facebook link for David Shee's public post, and you can read it yourself. It's really, really good.
And then there was some more that Diana had.
Yeah, I think that there's a public post where David gave me permission to quote him, so it's in full context.
Yes, and I will also post that if that's okay with you.
That is okay.
Cool.
Because it was connected to the bee shamanism.
Oh, Jesus.
Which is like was what prompted the conversation.
Yeah.
And I am not academically clued into that. I will say that I am totally fine with invented and new traditions. My issue comes in when they just can't admit that they're new.
Call a spade, call a club a club. Say what it is. Don't rely on other terms that have very specific and very important meanings and contexts attached to them.
Yes.
That it just muddles and confuses everything in your own search for legitimacy. You can be legitimate without the term, without the title.
I think there needs to be ways for people to assess legitimacy outside of titles, and that is really hard to pin down without the lived experience.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can attempt to claim a title. Like anyone with my color skin claims to be a shaman and speaks English as clearly as I do, or as unclearly as I do sometimes. You know, most people who speak English can kind of get the gist of what I'm saying most days. It's already going to be suspect. Anybody who doesn't think that or doesn't accept that is being disingenuous to begin with.
Yeah.
If not for David, I wouldn't even use that term that title to refer to myself in any way whatsoever at all. There is not, like, I only ever used spirit worker, and I would identify that I was a Finnish spirit worker, a Finnish American spirit worker. I worked with my mentor from Finland for many, many, many years. I'm still great friends with her. I've been exploring my Sami ancestry since it was found. I never tried claiming those titles. The closest I came was a shamanic spirit worker, because at the time I was trying to find a way to say what it was I did. And honestly, there wasn't a term for it. So I get people's frustration. I get people latching on to what they think the term and the titles mean. But I had the same debate, being very much not in the Wiccan, eclectic Wiccan communities, when back in the early aughts, when it was super popular to argue about whether or not something could be Wicca. And it was just, why don't you all just do like the Catholic and the Protestants did and just start calling yourselves something different because you're offshoots of each other. Yeah, granted, you're an offshoot of that, but, hey, at least identify it.
I mean, the fact that they couldn't even last 100 years before somebody was looking for a door to nail a note to you. Anyway.
For reference, for those who are not super familiar, David Shee is the author of Spirit Voices, Mysticism and Magic in
Northern Shamanism and Magic.
Yep, Northern Shamanism and Magic, which is a fantastic exploratory book on shamanism in its original forms in Northern Asia, mostly Mongolia, but also Siberia, Manchuria, and a couple of other places.
And there was a second book that predated that one that was a bit smaller, but still very good.
Yes, which I have not read, but I've heard was very good from Sarenth and others. We had David as a guest on the show a few episodes back. Please check that out. He was also a guest on AGF. He is a fantastic author, fantastic person. We want to have him back at some point in the future. We'll get to that when we plan things, which we never do, as evidenced by tonight.
And for further clarity, part of the reason why he was able to pass that recognition on to me that he did is because of the Finnish and Sami connection, because they actually did have that cross-cultural connection where the Sami and the Finns were kind of the cousin culture. Yep. But the title still did not get used a great deal in Finland or even in Sapmi. They used their own titles, which I have not honestly earned, which is why I don't use them. I don't refer to myself as a Noita or a Tataja, because there are very specific things that a Noita and a Tataja do that I do not do. So,
for reference, it's episode 43.
Thank you.
But I hate to be the one saying words have meaning. Don't bastardize the words, but that does kind of become part of it. And yes, that means that at times you're going to invent new words. That happens. We do that.
That's why I use the term Vaderverker. It literally just means spirits worker. That's what it means. It's what it says in the fucking tin.
Well, and the majority of my practice at this point is pack tradition, which is an entirely novel tradition. What is it? A bunch of spirits reached out. It started as a chaos magic experiment that became something else. And I had no idea when it started that it was going to involve other people. I thought it was just a fun thing for me to do. And now
I engaged in pack magic thinking you would stay solo. Fucking weird.
Yeah, well, that was stupid, but that's fine.
Here's the part that I'm marveling at is chaos magic is embracing entropy, and you somehow managed to wind it backwards into being organized.
Oh yeah, no,
chaos magic, you're an organized magic. How'd you do that?
Well,
with
mostly
chaos
it wasn't
magic.
me. Mostly it wasn't me. Mostly it was the spirits who were standing there waiting, like, knock, 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 knock. You ready yet? You ready yet? Okay.
Well, I guess that depends on what you mean by chaos magic, because as I use it, it's mostly making use of egregors created by culture and pop culture, and so like characters and mythical pop culture items that carry energy within our society that you can then utilize in a magical sense because you can tap into that energy.
Yeah. And I should also clarify, when I'm talking about chaos magic, I mean mostly a postmodernist thought framework applied to magical practice.
This is the...
I know, but I couldn't resist giving you shit.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. You should at every opportunity. I will give it back. I'm just, flustered.
Warming up.
I mean, the thing with chaos magic is that it's a meta modality at its core, right? It is a way of meta analyzing and in its original forms, the way that its founders, as such, put it together and deployed it.
Yes. No,
I'm sorry. I'm a stickler on this shit because I have to keep explaining this to people in my blog. Like, what chaos magic was and what it has become are two completely fucking separate things.
Yes. No, you're not wrong. I'm more in that school personally for how I approach chaos magic. I'm more in the Phil Hine school personally. I just am a postmodernist to my core. So the whole, it's a meta thing. No, it's not. It's just a system. It just thinks it's meta. But
that's cool. I'm just the structuralist asshole that hangs around you. It's okay.
So I just want to ask.
Sorry.
That's an egregor I do not want to deal with. But I'm trying to read Austin Osman Spare, and it really just feels masturbatory.
Congrats, you've encountered early chaos magic.
Yes.
Congrats, that's Osman Spare, yeah.
Like I said, Facebook.
I believe in reading source works. I frequently regret reading the source works, but I still believe in reading them.
Sure. My hat is off to you because I tried parsing that shit and I went, you know what? I'm just going to take what works out of this.
I've sat through so many. I have pretty much quit dating men, but I've sat through so many mansplaining men trying to impress me, and it's the exact same syntax. So I kind of parse it. It's about 95% bullshit, but there's a couple of nuggets in there.
You're not going to hear me tell you
different. A boring date with another occultist. I've done this before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so it's like dating a leftist who insists that you need to read Marx and the Glorious Revolution's right around the corner?
While claiming that everyone is bisexual and that somehow that means you owe them a threesome.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Maleck, you look so tired.
I've met a lot of these people. I know a lot of these people. It's unfortunate.
I think the guys I know most of these people online only because I don't think I'd be able to keep my hands off them in person.
To be fair, I think most of these people mostly exist online only, but
Okay, so that's actually for me one of the most frustrating things about these meta model pushers, right? It's like, okay, great, you've analyzed the model, now you got to live with it. What the fuck are you doing with it?
And that's the thing that a lot of, in my experience at least, that's the thing that a lot of chaos magicians stop short of is I've analyzed the system. Okay, neat, you analyzed it from the outside, but have you ever lived it? Have you ever stood inside it? Because if you haven't, then you haven't actually done the work that the people you are fucking reading from told you to do.
In his 2009 revision of his own book, Phil Hine talked right about this. He said, context is everything. The more that I have delved into a magic system, the more I got out of it. It's like, yes, no shit. I've been trying to tell chaos magicians this for literally fucking years.
It's not just chaos magicians. It's people walking up. My favorite was the guy rambling about a Zechariah Stitchin book. For those not familiar, this guy is basically weirdly horny for space vampires and has built a weird UFO spirituality around it.
Neat.
And it was just I just listened to the spiel and I looked at him and said, great, what do you do with that spiritually? At which point he suddenly had a friend he needed to go talk to.
Oh, so it's like AO3 came to life and made it a religion?
Oh, this is before AO3.
Oh, I'm neat.
You feel even worse. Well, and this is why you see, like, there's and I don't know if it's actually true, but there's the apocryphal story that a lot of the early chaos magicians, as they were doing chaos magic, ended up just initiating into established traditions, whether it was ATRs or other things. Why? Because they found that these things worked so fucking well. Why not just keep doing it?
Well, I mean, and that's really kind of what happened with you, is you found these techniques and spiritual things that worked so well that you, oops, all spirits.
Oops, all spirits. And then, I was basically showing it off to other people, both online and in person. And other people were like, "Oh, hey, that shit works. Oh, that's very. Oh no." And then other people started doing it too.
Oh, you get the reaction. I see. I don't get the people doing it. I just get the reaction of "oh," and then they.
I think it's just the circles we travel in. We need to find more of the people actually doing it.
Come to
con.
City more. Like, please, we need more people here.
Yeah, it's really, to me, as an animist and a polytheist, to me, the more that I bring these beings into my life, it's not just, oh, the more real they are. Like, no, like, if you give them real purchase in your life, it's amazing the shit that happens. And it's not just, and it's like, people will be, oh, just it's synchronicities. No. Stuff that is unmistakably the spirits impacting your life in a real way that you cannot explain otherwise. And you can approach this with an incredibly skeptical mindset. And I think that's a very healthy way to go, especially when you have so many grifters right now.
Oh yeah.
I will
sorry, go ahead.
Even after almost 30 years of practice, I can so much frustrate and annoy my spirits because I seem to have perfected this defense syndrome, best described as obliviousness.
By fire,
which is why Cinty's not joking about the keeping me alive stuff.
Like if something that is
like, oh, this whizzed past my head. That's weird.
Here's some fire.
That was an arrow, maybe a bullet. That was yeah.
What do you mean that was an emotion of mine?
Mental health is important, kids.
Yes.
Especially when you're a spirit worker, because you can haunt yourself.
So, I mean, that's one of the things that I struggle the most with trying to help people understand, like, actual spirit workers. If you get the vibe that the person is not authentic, and I don't mean like they're putting on a bit of a persona because they're teaching a class. I mean that they are living inauthentically.
Yep.
Get some distance, because that one's about to get smacked by whatever they're working with if they're actually getting out of their own head.
Yeah. If they're not, it might be the community.
Yeah.
In which case, you're going to want to get the fuck away anyway.
Yeah.
And maybe have some binoculars and popcorn, but yes.
Because the one thing that holds true in every realm of animism that I have seen, that I have encountered, that I've worked with, that I've talked to people who work with, whatever it is that authenticity and being authentically yourself and being just that brutal honesty of, yep, I'm going to fuck that up like this. I'm going to try not to, but I'm gonna. If you can't do that, you need to go back to the drawing board. You're not ready. Yeah. And I mean that as a safety. I do not mean that as some convoluted,
stupid ass put down,
pretentious anything. That is, you're going to get your shit fucked up. You're going to get all of your traumas the roots are going to show.
Yep.
And you're going to have to fucking deal with them.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're going to fucking deal with them. There is no, you don't. You're going to fucking deal with them.
Yep. And to emphasize that point a little more, being authentic doesn't mean being nice, right? In some traditions, that might mean becoming enlightened, but in most traditions that at least I'm aware of, a spirit worker can be a right bastard. They're real, but they can be a right bastard.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just tonight we were talking about, like...
I don't think I actually think I'm quite kind, just in a terrifying way. But that's authentically me.
I say can be, not always,
Okay, so the like, for instance, the base that I work with is, if it's come to violence, blows, spells, whatever the hell you're doing, everyone involved has already failed.
Yeah.
That's my base. That's the way I look at it. And but here's the thing that I learned where I grew up, dealing with the kinds of things that I dealt with.
Kind and nice are different things.
Yes.
Sometimes, and I'm not saying always, but sometimes, when a bully decides to swing, the only appropriate action is one order of escalation with intent to de-escalate. They swing their fist at you, you break their fucking hand, and then you stand there and go, I want to be done now. Can we be done? Oh, you're going to kick at me? Okay, now your leg's broke. Now can we be done? Yes, I will keep going one step further every single time. Can we be done now?
What people really don't understand about the find out part of fuck around is that you may not want that smoke. And this goes for people, this goes for spirits. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, this is something that needs to be said. I want to add, because I am the most visibly femme person present. One of the things I've run into, because since I've met Cinti, I've adopted that. A lot of it was I just wanted the bad things to stop. Like, I didn't really even get into my fuck around and find out until after I'd been with Cinti. I was just trying to get things to stop. And I was trying to be decent about it. And I realized that it didn't matter, because the people whose opinions of me mattered to me were wanting me to fight back more. The problem is, if you are femme, even that one step of escalation, it very frequently turns into the other person having something to prove, because of all kinds of subconscious patterning where, because I am femme, no matter how good I am supposed to reinforce their sense of superiority over me. And people have lost organs over it. And I have never wanted that, but they won't stop because of that need to feel superior. And I can't fix that.
And that's where it comes back to. Every time someone steps up a little bit harder in return, you step up again a little bit harder in return and go, please stop.
Actually, what I've had to do, because I would like my time to myself and not deal with other people's bullshit, is I go straight to I'm going to dangle you over the cliff.
Okay, I appreciate the Batman approach.
Yeah. Are we done? Because I will fucking drop you.
I mean, you did write hex twisting.
I wrote hex twisting before I met you. It was mostly done.
Yeah.
The only thing that changed was the passage about karma, because I had the stuff about cultural appropriation, but because I met you, I was able to talk to someone who actually practiced Brahmanism and was able to talk to me about karma from living it.
And he passed away.
Oh.
He passed away before the book actually came out. So,
and I have noticed this, and this is purely
he was a good friend.
He was a good man. I really enjoyed talking to him.
To his memory.
And I've noticed that people, since I wrote that, have been picking it up and explaining it. And like, can you please just give attribution, you fucks?
Right.
You can admit you read me. Like,
or that you read his explanation of it,
or
which
something,
gets passed around a lot.
Yeah, because it's like available on the internet and still circulates. It's really good.
Unfortunately, I don't have a link. It was from a forum a long time ago.
I think I downloaded it because
totally fair.
So I have it somewhere.
If possible, could we snag a copy of that after the show and throw it up on the resources on the Discord?
It may take me a while to find it, but I will look.
Okay, I appreciate that. If you don't have time, that's perfectly fine. I'm asking, you can say no.
Oh, no, I'm saying I will try to find it. I can't guarantee I will find it in a timely manner. Because,
And it's information we both feel should be out there.
Yes.
So
good, cool.
It's on the Witches and Pagans group. It is still there.
Paganism.
Yeah, Paganism and Wicca on Facebook.
For reference, that's a Facebook group that is a very long-standing discussion group that
really good critical thinkers in there. Sometimes they're a little vicious, but good critical thinkers.
Honestly, if you have the training to become a good critical thinker, which I think, in my opinion, takes a certain amount of training,
yes,
if you don't come out with at least a little bit of viciousness, I doubt your training, because like, genuinely, and I say that because you don't have to be vicious to be a critical thinker, but a lot of the people who do the training historically are pretty vicious, so you kind of pick up at least a little bit of that habit.
I think that
you got a good point there, yeah.
There's a difference between brutally honest and truth, right? Like, what is the truth of the matter versus what is the impact you want to make? And I think that's where some people fall short, in that they want a certain impact to be made when they cut down ideas or when they critique ideas. And I get it as somebody who can be that vicious prick. But I also understand it from the opposite point of view. Like, there are people who have to pick up the pieces when you're done doing that. And that can be a very hard thing to do if you traumatize a person when you're telling them your brutal honesty. And so I think that there's a way of telling truth in this culture that is built around, I am going to lift myself up at the same time that I put you down. That there's what I'm seeing now in communities, especially ours, is that there are more people going towards truth of the matter, like what they need to say, versus it feels good to bash this opinion.
And I think that comes back to losing critical thought.
Yes. And I've got two thoughts, and they're related but separate.
Mm-hmm.
One, a lot of the need to raise yourself up by breaking someone else down is absolutely present, and can also be a big hurdle for people who are neurodivergent.
Gods, yes.
Right? People who are autism spectrum or ADHD or both or etc. And I'm saying etc. because there are a lot of other labels that are just as important, but time can come across as smacking people down when what we're actually doing is just stating facts.
Right.
A lot of that is cross neurodivergent, neurotypical communication issues. So that's an added layer of, God damn it, why is this so hard? Well, that's part of why.
Right. But my brain literally functions different from yours. I'm not being vicious. I'm just being real.
Yeah, I'm just telling you the facts. I don't mean anything by it. Oh, you think I do because everyone around you does when they do this. Oops, my bad. Or really not my bad, more of just...
They're bad, but I have to deal with it.
Yeah. The other thing is also, this is why there are different roles in community, right?
Right.
Cabra, who takes their community building roles from... Damn it.
Thelma?
Not Thelma. What's the other tradition?
Reclaiming.
Reclaiming witchcraft.
Between the two of us, we will have a fucking brain cell. God damn it.
Yeah, no. One of us will at some point. They are the one who taught me a lot about this, quite frankly. And their tradition, reclaiming, actually has like names for these various roles, right? And they're loose categories and all of that. At least that's my understanding, anyway.
Reclaiming is very egalitarian, so like the titles are there to facilitate communication, not indicate any kind of importance.
Yeah, right. And different people have different roles. Like for them, they've got a role called a dragon, I think, which is kind of a boundary keeper, and nope, absolutely not. Fuck that. Nope. That's kind of what their role is, right? Both internally and externally, right? Where, hey, you made it in and you said some bullshit. No. Or you're trying to get in and no, that's bad. You're not welcome here right now. Which are related roles. I'm real good at that. I'm not real good at picking up the pieces after. It's just how it is.
Yeah. Yep.
And
like one of the things that I often get told I was known for was I was really fair, and I would like call people out if they were like saying so and so said this. I'm like, no, they didn't say that. There's plenty of shit that person said, and they're not a good person. So feel free to point out the things they said. They didn't say that. Like, let's be honest in our critique, because it stands up to being critiqued far better when we're being honest and putting that forward. And then I often ended up being somebody who also helped pick up the pieces. So I mean, it
in our communities, we have to wear a lot of hats.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the biggest. Like I wouldn't say it's a downfall, but I think it's one of the biggest threats to somebody who's coming into doing spirit work is a lack of understanding of how many hats you may be required to wear.
Oh my goodness!
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness! That is
Like, because nobody like unless you're going like, and I'm going to pit my workshop here. Unless you're going to being a spirit worker as a workshop, like you're not going to hear from people inside the community. Like if you claim XYZ title, unless you get some good training, you're not going to be told.
Well, Can I riff on that and take it in a slightly different direction too? Another
Sorry, I'm
thing
drinking
too-
water.
No, you're fine. Please drink water. Good. That's much better than what I'm doing.
Self-care. We all need to be hydrating more.
Yes.
Yeah, that goes for everybody that's listening.
Granted, I hydrated with tequila. I don't recommend that, but this is what we did tonight.
Hey, I'm also hydrating with tequila and whiskey and rum. This is a great idea.
I
I love all of you. That is not fucking hydrating. Drink H2O, you fucks.
I will. Don't worry, I will.
I had a gin mojito with dinner. What?
Fabulous. That actually sounds delightful, honestly.
I fucking love you all. God damn it, drink actual water.
Water.
I already went through 3 40-ounce things today, so
Okay,
yes, there has been actual
fair.
water.
Okay.
Damn,
And
what was I saying? Picking up titles. If you claim a certain title, it's very possible, not necessarily likely, but it's very possible that the spirits that are attached to that title might take you seriously and start expecting that of you.
Oh, yes. That was one of the things I warned people about almost constantly, where if you're going out there and saying, hey, I'm working with that creek spiritually, guess what? It's going to come to you saying, hey, can you help get the iron oxide out of me? Can you help filter some of the mercury out? Can you help me deal with the poison that is hurting me? And guess what? It's gonna expect you to help.
Yep.
That doesn't just mean give it energy. That doesn't mean give it shinies and wish it well. That means you might actually have to haul some fucking limestone and talk with people who know what they're doing with the environment for where to put it.
Yep.
Oh, wait, you mean I actually have to do real fucking work as part of this?
I'm a city priest. Sometimes you have to find ways to nudge people to do the real fucking work and make them think it's their idea, which I hate.
Oh,
that was one of the things. So I went to the Detroit ritual that y'all hosted at the last convocation, which was a fabulous ritual, by the way.
We do apologize. I think we should have explained a little bit more before we started that one.
Yeah, I was in a weird headspace, but the one with the frogs or the one with the city of Detroit?
City of Detroit.
So that was
the waters one.
The water one,
yeah.
Okay, that one we did well on.
That one went well, yeah.
I was going to say, no, y'all did a fabulous job explaining things, because one of the things that I actually, I'm glad you're here so I can tell you this, I completely lifted from your explanation was, these are very real spirits. These are not intermediate intercessors or intermediaries. If you make a deal with them, they will expect you to hold up to it.
Oh my God,
yeah. With them at all, they might come back and continue interacting with you. This is not playtime. They will continue to interact with you because you said hi.
If they choose to.
That's
the other part. That's the other part. People keep there's Diana explains this all the time during the urban magic workshops, is where there's a difference between dominionist magic.
Okay, so let me do this.
Or is it more the hex twisting workshops?
No, this was actually new stuff that I didn't teach in any of them yet. This is stuff that I've been teaching on TikTok.
Oh.
I've kind of come up with a way of looking at magic into 3 divisions. One is dominionist magic that's coming from the Christian magic and some of the Abrahamic stuff,
which can be valid.
Which again, I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying these are different approaches. Yeah. Where is the God gave us this thing and we're supposed to rule over it. We're supposed to dominate it. And hey, if we pave everything and put up a parking lot, then Jesus will get here sooner or some stuff. There is that mentality of dominate it to
extremism
death.
Versus not extremism within each too.
But we are living in a polarized world, so some people really are going for let's get Jesus here faster by just fucking everything up. And there's a lot of dominionist magic behind it. The next one, and this is kind of the Christianity that I grew up with in the non-traumatizing version, was the stewardship, which also works in magic, and I've seen in eclectic Wicca a lot. I can't speak for the other trads, where it is we were given this wonderful gift of the earth or of Mother Earth or these wonderful things that are around us to take care of, and that can include spirits or not, but it's still kind of a paternalistic where we're taking care of them.
And I want to add one thing in. So from my understanding, ceremonial magic would really fit well within the dominionist mindset, especially when you start getting into the grimoires and the Solomonic. And like, you're going to do what I said because I commanded you to be here, and therefore you will abide by what I am saying. And that's a very dominionist.
And I kind of want to do a spread on the life expectancy of the average ceremonial based on exactly how many unnecessarily Bostruan spirits they did. May I finish?
But for the second category, you're looking more at the common pagan, where it's the I'm going to go out and I'm going to honor nature. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to try to clean things up because I want it to be pretty. I want to enjoy it.
I'm going to raise energy to heal the earth, although sometimes you may not be specific about what the energy does, so it just sort of does a little bit here and there ambient and gets diluted. I have some technique opinions, as you can tell. And then the third one is the one that is both, in my opinion, and this is highly biased, it is more dangerous but also more rewarding, is allyship, where you and the spirit, I wouldn't call it an equal relationship. I am not equal to a mountain. That mountain can go boom and squish me and go, oh, oops, that one was cute.
I mean, look at Appalachia right now.
Yeah, no shit. But it's one where the spirit and the spirit worker are participant together.
Yeah,
there is a relationship that is built.
I mean, I think that. Oh, I'm sorry, I did not interrupt. Please go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I think I was done. I was about to wander off the way I do. So you're good.
Okay. I think this is one of the things that a lot of folks who, I would say that there's this. It's not innocence. It's almost like we're still trying to shake off the dominionist ideology that a lot of folks come out of, because a lot of folks have this very Pollyanna idea of how nature works. And it's like, to a certain degree, what you put in the river does, like, it fucks up the neighbors down the stream. It might not fuck you up, but it'll fuck somebody up if you put shit in that stream, right?
Like one of the terms I always used for it was similar to that, was the Disneyfication of nature.
Yes.
Yeah, Disneyfication.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to tend to the puppy, so I'm going to ask Ashton to take her out. I will be right back. So
cool. Take your time.
But the I want to point out that just as we recognize that as people, as humans, we have these three categories that Diana mentioned, that we recognize it. I think it's fair to say you both also recognize those categories as you know, things that humans are using in framework, general ideas of magic.
All right,
when you cross over a certain line of understanding when it comes to spirit work, you start realizing that the spirits kind of also do those same three categories with us on the receiving end.
This is very true.
Pretty accurate, yeah.
So also, it gets interesting. So like that whole, the spirit workers need to be careful because the things might keep working with you. You need to realize you may end up working with a dominionist spirit who's going to tell you what the fuck you're going to do.
And not everybody is into that.
No.
Especially since some spirits are still being taught consent. Like, I am coming across other people that work with ancestors where they're having sit downs about, this is how consent works now, and you're going to use this.
Yeah.
And getting pushback over it.
A good example of this is going back to the shamanism thing that we talked about. Shamans in traditional North Asian cultures don't have a choice. They're told by their own gods, you're a shaman, you're going to do this.
And if you don't, I'm going to fucking break your legs.
Yeah, right. Like, we're going to fuck you up until you shoot
so much. It's not even so much that all the time. A lot of times what it is you're going to do this thing. I'm going to put this weight on your back. You're going to carry it. Either you learn how to carry it and still move, or you're going to be crushed by it.
Yeah.
It's not so much I'm going to actively break your legs all the time. Sometimes it's just the task I put on you is going to crush you.
No, that's a very good point.
Yeah. And
I mean, don't get me wrong. There are the ones that will go, I'm going to break your legs.
No, but I'm thinking to certain stories I've heard.
Yeah.
It's somewhat literally, you can't walk now, asshole. Guess you got to do spirit work.
So, and I don't need to track because the shamanism and the non-voluntariness of it is an important discussion. something I'm going to point out, and again, because I've been a little bit heretical with urban magic, is
Right.
these animistic spirits do not see climate change entirely the same way we do.
Right.
And so there's a lot of things like, again, machines can be animistic.
Right.
Cities can become animistic. City spirits can become independent animistic spirits. Pollution spirits, like I thought I saw a cryptid. It turned out it was a pollution spirit that had rolled out of the river locally. And these are things where...
And none of you should be fucking with that. Leave it alone.
Do not. Yes, don't. You got a point there. Okay. Sorry, I'm like trying to keep up with my thoughts, and the tequila is almost winning, but not quite today.
I get you. I get you.
So it was... Part of it is that we have to understand that when we are doing these things for climate change, we are trying to save ourselves, because the planet's still going to be here. These animistic spirits are still going to be here. Some of them would like to be left alone, and yet people are coming at them with giant vibrators without so much as a hello.
Oh yeah,
that's what they're doing.
I mean, some of the worst things you can do right now is wake up some of these spirits that are not supposed to be awake.
Yeah.
They are sleeping.
I love you, honey. Sir, at least your car has stopped working, as opposed to your leg being broken to get you to slow down a bit. You're not fucking wrong.
I do well with machine allies. Do I need to talk to your car, Sarenth?
Dude, it's in the
shop.
Mean,
if they're trying to keep him from overdoing it and get him to slow down a bit so that he can actually keep going, I think it might be better to...
The man still needs to work, honey.
I understand modern realities, but at the same time, limits.
At the moment, we are good.
Okay.
We will figure it out. The thing that I wanted to touch on really quick was like Werewolf the Apocalypse for me taught me this at a very early age. Not all the spirits want to be your friends or should, because I love the whoever the writer of Werewolf the Apocalypse is. I need to talk to Phil because I need to get him in touch with him, because he revolutionized, as a very young Catholic, my worldview of sometimes these spirits aren't evil, they're just pricks and they want to be left the fuck alone.
Like me.
We had a maple tree in our yard for a while. A previous home.
A very grumpy maple tree, yeah.
And so, you know, the notion that every spirit should be your friend is such a white light dominionist concept to me. Like, I honestly wish that pagans would have dispensed with it by now, but clearly we need to do more work in our communities. Because, you know, some spirits are just going to be assholes because you're human. And it has nothing to do with you. It's because, you know what? Some jackass that looked exactly like you, or near enough, has been poisoning the fucking river for 30 years. And they don't desire to make a distinction anymore. Because you're a threat.
Yep.
So another good example, a pop culture example of that, it was Hocus Pocus 2. Where
I have not seen that yet.
It is worth the watch.
Really?
It's good.
It is worth the watch. It's really good.
It's a continuation. I'm not going to give it away, but it's a continuation. It's
in spirit work, American exceptionalism will get you killed and you will deserve it.
Holy shit, now I want to watch it.
Like, I'm not going to spell it out that clearly, but if you watch, you will see.
But like that's really a thing. Like, so referencing earlier in the conversation with like my bone kit and talking to the pack spirits, the reason I say you don't want to talk to these spirits most of the time is because they're not gonna fuck around, and like they don't care. It's not like, oh, they mean you harm. No, they just don't care. These are predatory spirits. Most of these spirits, as I interact with them, are wolves. They'll fucking eat you. They don't care.
I mean, one of the ones that I work with that to this day still unnerves Diana is some of the mines I grew up surrounded by.
Right.
And I know I've talked about this before in a lot of different settings. I grew up hearing stories about the miners walking back up over the mountain, coming back into the valley, and you know, oh, John, he's complaining about his back there. He better stop doing that. And he keeps talking about it. And all of a sudden he's like, yeah, that would feel better. And then he takes a step off the path and he's gone. Because he stepped into one of the ventilation shafts and he dropped a mile in.
What I find really fun about this part of the conversation is I can see the I'm drunk enough I can see the threads that are tying your experience, Maleck, to Cynthia's explanation.
But
This is fascinating. Please continue.
Here's the part that people don't understand is, well, that means that mine was it tricked them. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. You know what it said?
Exactly what it meant.
You're hurting. I can take that pain. Step this way and I'll take that pain. I'll take it from you. You don't need it. You don't need to carry that pain anymore.
Which is why when things offer to take your pain, politely decline.
And then you fall for a while and you go splat and no more pain.
Your back pain has been resolved.
And hey, the mind spirit gets a little blood. It's happy. I mean,
Yeah.
here you go. Yeah, that's some unnerving shit to be around. And I'm the person who gets regularly visited by water spirits. And if you work with water spirits, they are notoriously unhinged. They show up in our bathroom to say hello to me. It's getting kind of weird.
Estoy pooping, leave me alone.
Yeah, that's basically it. Like there's one that's a man-made lake that used to be naturally flowing, and it will show up going, I want to have breakfast with you. When are we having brunch? Do you see what I'm doing here?
Also,
human stuff. You're liquid.
Also, stop flushing all of your energetic crap down into the sewers.
Reiki healers, we're talking to you.
So much of what people are dealing with and like having this toxic stuff coming into their lives, and if you follow the energy lines back, it's coming back from their toilet or their shower drain. It's because you're dumping shit into what is supposed to be a spreading swamp.
Stop stomping your energetic bullshit down the drain.
Please.
It's being confined into pipes. It wants to spread out so that the swamp can do what a swamp does, it can't, and it's pissed off because you're throwing your shit in there on top of it.
Okay, so since most of these people are not taught a better alternative, just throw it in the toilet and don't think it through. They need to be given an alternative. A reasonable alternative would actually be to get yourself a bucket or something and have an energetic compost heap. Remember, when you're shaking this stuff off, even when you're doing banishing in the ceremonial way, there is no such thing as a way. It still goes somewhere. So you need to tell it where to go, which does mean occasionally I will haunt an especially misogynistic Baptist church. But it needs to
or the Salvi.
Look, no, but that's a good point. And that's actually, I keep a compost pile and I do a lot of work spiritually with my compost pile because it's a good way to recycle things.
And I bet you treaty with what's in that pile rather than making deals with it.
Kind of. So my compost pile is dedicated to a bunch of gods that I work with.
Okay.
So
differently than what I'm referring to, but if you're referring to the animistic side of the compost pile, you definitely will. It would be wise to treaty only with that, where you keep healthy boundaries.
Yes. You don't want it to come back inside with you and etc.
Yeah.
So our compost pile is growing pumpkins. They're fucking huge.
That sounds fantastically healthy.
I would love to get some pumpkins growing here because I really want to do fun things with the seeds.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I make a damn good gluten-free pumpkin pie.
But that again, that's a good example. By its very nature,
nature,
rot should not be allied with. All it does is consume and degrade. That's its purpose. It does that to be part of the recycling process. And if you're making deals with that, you are further in contact with it, which means it kind of has an infectious quality.
Remember Raceland from Dragonlance?
So if you're going to do it, the amount of caution and precautions you need are going to be exponentially more than most people are prepared for.
I would differentiate between rot and the compost cycle as a whole, just for our listeners, because what I'm bringing to mind is the compost cycle is bringing us pumpkins around again.
Oh yeah.
So that's Nithhogg, as I understand her, them, they, he, is Nithhogg completes the cycle. It is not
Mhm.
just the rot. I understand your point if you're talking purely about the rot perspective.
Yes. That portion isolated.
Okay. No, because like it's like fire, but water. Fire, if you give fire something to eat, it'll eat it. Rot is very similar.
Less in line with elemental, more in line with like.
It's like if death eats.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or disease, and it's not quite there. There's a word for it, and I can't.
The closest I can come is if it's the way that it is how death eats or pestilence eats.
Perhaps a better word for it is, instead of rot, perhaps decay. I don't know.
It depends, because there's different stages and each one has.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Words are hard.
Plus the microbes, like the microbes, like we don't really think about.
This gets into the gray of it.
And now I'm like wondering about, like, is it possible to like have an alliance with single-celled organisms?
Yes.
You probably do, because you're Cindy.
Absolutely.
I'm also a microbiologist by trade. It's absolutely possible.
Yeast is a wonderfully helpful one that can absolutely go wildly out of control as well.
So without giving further context, because of rot and certain things that you should never do, I have had to wash dead bodies in a lake in the middle of the night.
Fair.
Again, if you're gonna
animal bodies, but still, if shit gets weird.
If you're gonna make deals with the animistic spirit of rot, you're going to need to do things that you would not believe, and you will need to take precautions you were probably not prepared for.
All I can say is I am that deeply
to be
dedicated
healthy afterward.
I am that dedicated to getting people off my lawn.
That's fair.
I believe you. Do you mind if I say something, Saren?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I just don't want to talk over you. That's all.
Okay.
I think, for me, at least from my perspective, it's more about living in concert with, and each thing has its place, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want my compost pile inside my house.
Right?
But it would also be bad for my compost pile. It's not the right conditions for my compost pile, and it's not the right conditions for me.
Right. Absolutely.
So I wouldn't, and this is, I think, a lot of it comes back to context and worldview, and there is a huge amount of gray, like you were saying. But I think a lot of it comes down to context, and also part of it also is that I'm so used to a worldview where I'm just prepared to do basically whatever I need to do to make shit work well.
Yeah. There's a line that we have to remind each other of periodically, because the more accustomed to something you are, the more you lose touch with how not common it is.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Is in this context, this line applies to you right now, Maleck?
Maleck is generally... Yeah.
Okay. Maleck, and I apologize for spacing on that for a moment. I'm horrible with names. You're an exception in that context. In that moment, you are an exception to what is common,
which is not associated with the exceptionalism where you expect to be the exception. Never expect to be the exception.
Exactly.
That's how you die.
I mean, This is also like, so when we come to these kinds of conversations, part of the danger of having spirit workers on and chatting with each other is we can make shit sound really common sense. It is only common sense to us, because when we go out in the community and we're like, why aren't you guys doing these things? And they look at us like our heads are screwed on backwards. It's because our heads are fucking screwed on backwards.
Well, yes. And that's the thing. Like, I routinely interact with a kind of burgeoning spirit worker community where they're kind of just getting in touch with this mythology and this group of gods that they're working with, and I'll just ask questions like, hey, how does this work in your system? And they're like, what do you mean? Right. And I'm like, you haven't thought about that? What do you mean you haven't thought about that? That's step one. We need this to move forward.
I mean, we're talking about rot right now, but this also extends to things like when people say, I'm developing a relationship with the forest. What do you mean? What do you actually like? What do you actually mean? Because
well, you see, now you're getting into big A animism versus small A animism. You're talking collective versus individual.
Literally, the forest for the trees.
So, which part of the forest? Are you talking the collective of that forest? That if you're in the forest, you are part of that collective, big animistic spirit that is forming that chorus? Or are you talking the individual trees that you happen to like, the individual other plants, the animals, the microbes, the fungi, the mycelia that you like? But hey, that's poison ivy over there, and hey, that's mustard garlic, and I don't like that, so I'm gonna rip it out and destroy it because I don't want it there.
Mustard garlic will take over everything if you let it.
I mean, it will, but it makes a wonderful pesto.
It does.
This caught me off guard and made me laugh. But I mean,
no, that was earlier when
right. But I mean, if you're not thinking about if it's a treaty, if you're not thinking about if it's a treaty versus a reciprocal relationship versus a dominionist relationship, you might actually be being taken for a ride.
Yeah.
And this is like I wanted to bring this forward into the larger conversation that you're having, because this can be such an important part of how are you integrating into that big A animism.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's your entry point?
So the thing that I usually start off with people is to help them understand that concept. I reference a sociology experiment that I got told about. And that was basically, they took the entire auditorium of people and said, okay, everybody come down here. Everybody start making a noise that is different from the noise of the person next to you. And everybody just keep making it more different until everyone is comfortable that the noise they are making is different than the people adjacent to them.
Right.
Okay. Then now everybody take that noise that you're making and make it closer to the noise that everyone else is making until everyone is in harmony and using a singular voice.
Right.
This is what happens when we build things, when we take divergent items and pieces of things and we smack them together, we glue them together, we stitch them, we staple them, we rivet them, we screw them, and we go, now you're a new thing.
Right.
Well, it's got to find its voice. And that includes when you come into being part of that new thing, you're now part of that voice. You have to find your space within it. That previous chorus has to find its space with you in it. And you have to find that new harmony to move forward, or you're not going to, and you're just going to simply exist in it while throwing things off.
So really quick, having worked in a microbiology department before, it's very easy to forget what is common for most in that area. And then flora and fauna, land spirits, ancestors of the land, so many components. I think this speaks especially because when you are literally walking in a place, your microbiology impacts the ground you walk on, right?
It does.
Mm-hmm.
You are becoming either a disruptive or an integrative force by dint of you walking into a space, right?
Well, and it's both. So interestingly,
thank you. I was hoping you'd pick up on that because
sorry. I'm going to go on a rant for a second. Apologies.
You're welcome. I triggered this. I appreciate it.
There's some relatively recent research, relatively being within the last decade, about our microbiomes, and the previous understanding was that it was pretty physically confined. Physically here being solid physical contact. So your skin. Inside you, etc. The more recent research is that it actually exists more like a pig pen from the Peanuts style cloud around you, and there is actually forensic science research being done where we might be able to identify people who have been through an area by the microflora in the area and lining that up with particular people. Obviously, that is far in the future because that requires a huge amount of information that we don't have access to right now. But that's kind of the thing that Sarenth is referencing and why I'm going on this rant, is you both give and receive this microflora from everything around you all the time. And taking it away from even microflora, which is as much a part of you as your own cells, because there are actually more cells that aren't you in you than you. There's more you by mass, but less you by numbers, which is a different thing because your cells are so many times bigger than
Right.
bacteria, for example. But like anything you touch, you're leaving dead skin cells and fragments of you behind. Even if they're not recognizable as cells anymore, you're leaving them. Like I'm touching my table here repeatedly, and I'm leaving dead skin on that all the time. In fact, most of the dust in your house is dead you that you've just sloughed off. And that's just you becoming part of your environment, and also your environment becomes part of you as you breathe the air, as you touch things, you pick things up constantly. Anything that's on this table that I keep touching over and over is becoming part of my hand as I touch it. Anything that can come off will slowly come off.
It's almost like in Star Trek when they would use the tricorder and they're like, oh, there's remnants of this thing. Yeah, that.
Exactly. Or like
that's reality.
Yeah, when Mole in Atlantis, the animated movie, dug under Milo's fingernails and pulled out dirt samples and figured out, oh, you were here because this and this thing. No, that's real. Like, is that a little sci-fi in the accuracy of it? Yes, but not by that much. You can identify things to a pretty extreme degree of accuracy by analyzing what is on it, what traces it has from its environment. It's pretty wild what you can pick up.
And to say that we don't understand even a glimmer of how intricate things actually are is such an understatement. They are just now starting to come to recognize that the mycelia in the forest, like what we were talking about before, that it actually helps function as a communication network between the trees, where they will release stress hormones through and signals through that mycelial network. And like, this is not sci-fi, this is not woo-woo, this is actual science that they are doing. They are finding it. They are seeing these trees that are sick and struggling, giving nutrients that they have to other trees, or things that they use, plants they used to think were simply parasitic.
Right. So,
for instance, like Indian pipe, it is a colorless, or it is not colorless, but it is a white small plant. It's a relative of the blueberry. It's a single stalk. They grow in bunches, and if you touch it, it'll start to blacken, and it's also gets called corpse plant or ice plant because it's very weak and fragile. It'll start almost melting in your hand, even though it's solid. But it has no chlorophyll. It's not fungal. It is actually a plant, but the mycelia will give it nutrients. And they were, for a long time, scientists were like, well, this plant is tricking the mycelia into thinking no, it's not. It is producing its own distinct thing. It's not mimicking the tree. The mycelia is feeding it the nutrients that the tree sent down to the mycelia. Very intentionally, these things are happening, and science is proving it's happening. And it's like, I don't want to say science is proving animism right.
No,
I don't want to. But
I had an interesting argument because of this.
Yes, but it what my point is there's so much more that we don't understand, even scientifically, the process behind.
Well, I also, because we've talked so much about out in nature and I actually kind of want to bring it back to city spirits, because there's a really unfortunate divide between the city and nature, which I don't think actually exists when you get into animism and you actually integrate it in your life.
Yeah.
So please, Urban Priestess, speak to us.
Urban Priestess,
Don't kick us out of the room this time, though. Any of the three of us, please.
Sorry, Urban Priest, excuse me.
No, honestly.
That's what she was going to teach.
Gender apathetic.
When she kicked us all out.
Yeah, I was actually teaching, when I kicked out, I was teaching the urban magic class because it was right before my book came out on urban magic. And I'm working on basically a 5-book series now, but there is this thing.
Yeah, it's grown more.
It's I accidentally wrote a whole book anyway, and I went to add a few things, and now I'm almost 60,000 words in, and that's just on the one because and I don't do things halfway.
And she's got at least 2 more outlines.
But anyway, we're off the subject, so let's corral this gentle folk. But one of the things that I do get a lot of pushback on, and one of the reasons that I end up having to write hex twisting, there is this mentality of the way we think of nature is the good and right way. And this is one of the, and they're wrong, actually scientifically wrong. And they are not taking that well or responsibly or maturely, because their identity, because some of these people's identity is so wrapped up with, I'm a festival pagan, I love nature, but it's really just escapism.
And if
Cinti, I'm trying to finish. Thank you. It's really just escapism with a really bad trash pile at the end of the camp out most of the time.
Sorry, Burning Man, what?
Burned a higher carbon footprint to get to the festival, and then they're bemoaning living in these cities where, one, you have community, everything around them still came from nature, and it's not like you're going to tear down the building. Farms and cities are interdependent, completely interdependent. One will not survive without the other, and there are ways to bring urban farming in. There are so many opportunities to make cities places that feed everyone like they were originally, like back in the day when a large city was like maybe 8,000 people. Like, cities were the first intentional communities. Cities were the pagan campouts.
And the thing that drives me nuts, that has always driven me nuts, is, well, of course cities have nature if you just look hard enough. Look, there's a dandelion coming up through that crack. There's a rat over there. There's a raccoon over there. We have pigeons, damn it. We have our parks.
How about the beehive that got built over a stoplight because the bees went, we can do this better?
Yeah.
I have seen in every major city I've lived in, even San Francisco. Or the time I was in San Francisco, I went around the corner of the 7-Eleven and I had to change my route because a coyote wanted to slushy at the same time.
Here's another thing that people don't realize: pigeons are feral, and I mean that specifically in the scientific definition of the word feral. Feral does not mean wild or crazy. Feral means was domesticated and has gone back to living without humans. Feral cats are a thing. In fact, cats are only partly domesticated. That's a whole other conversation. But pigeons are feral. They were pets, and then they became not pets. And now they're feral. They can't really live without us.
But Maleck, they're pigeons.
Do you know how often I have fantasized about punting a pigeon because they'd fit right over my foot? And I used to get dive bombed when I lived in Minneapolis. There was one pigeon that just had it out for me. I think it just hated my trench coat.
I mean, it's not saying anything good about where I grew up if you know about where I grew up and what the types of events I'm about to mention. But I mean, we had pigeon shoots there for a reason.
Yeah.
Yep.
Competitive pigeon shoots.
But again,
and they got eaten, so anyone doesn't get offended. They got eaten, like the meat got stripped off the birds and they got eaten.
Squab is good eating, like fuck y'all.
Okay, but here's the thing: is cities are complex ecosystems. We're talking about the stereotype animals,
right?
We're talking about the birds and the cockroaches and the bedbugs and this stuff, but they are complex ecosystems that animals adapt to.
Yes,
like coyotes are one of the first to adapt. Raccoons, which were also apparently reincarnated mafia members, according to San Francisco lore, were also like a thing, and they presented themselves saying, "We want acknowledgement." Like, all right, just let me keep my wallet.
And to say that on the other end of things, just to include this part, if you think that the city with the pavements and the buildings and the lights and the parks and the dandelions and all the other things that y'all want to point out are in cities, if you think that's any less natural than the monoculture farms that dominate entire regions of states, not just the footprint of a city, even if you include the footprint of the city in the vertical that the city goes into, if you look at how much land, acreage is used to farm single monoculture things, and I'm not talking like I'm including the variants of corn, of all the different hybrids and everything else that they're making now. It's still corn.
Yeah.
Fuck it. That's not natural. Let's be real. We shouldn't be destroying 70% of the crop in a given area because one person had a really bad snap of cold. Okay,
Yeah.
Michigan produces 70 to 80% of the sweet cherries, the tart cherries that this country eats. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah. On top of it, like part of the actually
Sorry,
one of
I
the
did not
major
mean to
things
interrupt you.
that influenced my interest in urban magic, and basically I had a fascination with permaculture before I even knew the word. My grandparents lived in Muncie, Indiana when I was growing up, and they had lived in the middle of the city across from Ball State University,
Mhm.
and they found a way to 85% subsistence farm on their property on small space gardening. They'd make their own grape juice. They'd have all of the vegetables they'd need. They can, they pickle. Like the only thing they ever needed to do was they like had a farmer friend where they'd go and like buy bulk meat from him a few times a year.
But
Sure.
I mean, to come back to what we were talking about big A animism, little A animism, the forest for the trees and whatnot, how many different, if you actually recognize that all these different things came together and made the buildings, how many times have you gone into an old house or even an old large building in a city and felt that that place had its own personality?
And the building,
Yeah.
not just the
Right?
spirits in the
Or the
building.
neighborhood has personality. You can just tell. You can
I
almost
live in a house that was built in
feel it,
1950. It
right?
definitely has its own
It
fucking
it
character.
found its voice, right? That's the big A for that thing. But now go out into the farm. Go out
Right.
into the farm country. How many different voices do you hear? How natural?
Not many if they're all soybean.
So I live in Bay City and I drive out to Pigeon. For people in Michigan, this will make sense to you. If not, I drive about an hour through the middle of fucking nowhere every 5 days a week, 2 ways. And it is so quiet. And
It is.
Isn't that fucked?
Okay, so I have a little bit of Slavic paganism to add in here.
Yeah.
Those individual crops all have their own animistic spirit, and all of them have some big feels about being cut down so people can eat them. And they are not good feels.
Yeah.
Not always.
This is
No, it
this
depends on the
is
spirit, but yeah.
it-
And like I recently had a client interaction where everything going wrong in their house was because a crop had imprinted on one of the household members.
oh shit.
And
Oh shit.
in Polish paganism, we have lore
Right.
about like if during the harvest season, so about now, like from September till now, people would get visited by women in white or like by small children who would suddenly have all these questions about the crop. And if you get them wrong, you get very, very ill.
Think
or
like
you end up like kind of sort of possessed by the crop.
think like Children of the Corn, He Who Walks Behind the Rose. Like
Except
that,
it is the
that
corn.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
And there has been a version of that has evolved around here. I sidestepped the fuck out of it because I know I couldn't answer this question. Rotate, and I don't even mow my lawn anymore. So bye.
Yeah. No, 100%. And it's weird. I'm going to have another story real quick. When I moved into the house that I'm currently living in, and this is going to freak you all out very slightly, I walked into this house, which was built in the 1920s. So you would expect some things, right? Mm-hmm. This house was dead silent.
Oh, that ain't good.
There was no spirits living here. There was the spirit of the building, but it was asleep.
Oh,
See,
what the fuck?
That's where I thought you were going with that.
That means some shit went down.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
No, it does not. What that means is that the spirit is asleep. You're making assumptions without facts. You don't know. Sometimes they go to sleep.
I love this dynamic between you two. I have to say this as your friend. I fucking love this dynamic because I watch how you two interact and I fucking dig this shit because it so reminds me of not only my own relationships with my own partners, but it so reminds me like we have such different ways of coming to the same conclusion that I wish fervently that people did not go for the palatable or the most obvious answers because you two work shit out and I love it. It's the same dynamic I have with most of my friends who are in spirit work.
I was going to say, it reminds me of me and you, Sarah.
Yes, it absolutely reminds me.
Here's
That's where I was going with it. Like,
Right,
it actually reminds me of Maleck and I.
well, the reason why I was cautioning is because if shit went down, what's the natural impulse to do? Try to fix
Right.
it. Try to help
Right.
heal it.
Sure,
If it's just sleeping,
but you might not be the one.
if it's just sleeping, it's not yours to fuck with.
But
Maybe it should be quiet.
on the other hand,
But
if
we
it
don't
is yours-
know. You
Right.
haven't told us yet.
But real quick, Milk Horses. I've been to a place that had no house spirit. It was weird, like being 3D in a 2D place.
Yeah.
I feel that in my bones because
And that's different too. Yeah.
Yeah.
In this case, it was both. It was both the spirit of the building was asleep, and it started to wake up basically as soon as I moved in properly, because I moved in kind of weird in that, like, I took ownership of the house, renting it, but still a couple of months before I properly moved in because of complicated personal things. But also I'm used to living in apartments where, like, at least there's some kind of spirit of the apartment itself, and then also a broader spirit of the building. And each, like, individual unit has a little sub spirit that is kind of a piece of the bigger apartment.
It's almost like little A and big A thing.
Yeah, that basically.
I'm just picturing like minions stacked.
Yeah, no, it's
Oh
not,
my god.
that's not inaccurate. And like it was.
Thanks. I have minions in my head now. Thank you.
And it was this weird kind of, it was this weird kind of perfect storm here of, like, and you can actually see some of the doors in my house have fist holes in them where someone has clearly, like, several of these doors got kicked in at some point.
See,
Oh.
shit happened.
Yeah, so both shit happened.
A logical leap.
So what I'm hearing is the house had a literal traumatic experience and said, "Fuck this," retreated into itself to protect itself.
It's kind of both. So what I think happened is this house has
wow.
been a rental for a long time, and so any house spirits that were accompanying people just kept moving out. Any house or domestic spirit that was here, aside from the spirit of the building, originally is long since gone, either driven off or driven mad and kind of just left, or both. And then on top of that, there was also a particularly bully spirit in the backyard that someone had dug out of a landfill. It was this old clown, like cardboard, but not cardboard, like plywood cutout, that was very angry about life and existence. And it had started trying to, like, set up its own, like, mini mafia kingdom in the background.
I'm doing the leap in my head where I'm like, hey, that's probably because it doesn't want to be around the living anymore. It's done. And
I would stop because, one, some of this is still living energy. It was asleep, not dead. The other thing is this was right about the time of Prohibition, where a lot of weird shit went down.
This is great because this is the same dynamic that Maleck and I have.
Absolutely, 100% the same dynamic.
Oh my fucking god, it's great!
So the cutout spirit was not that old. It was relatively recent. I think the last people who had rented this house a couple of years ago dug it out of a landfill while drunk and just dropped it in the backyard because good crimes, right?
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Also, that landfill is absolutely a fairy mound now, just FYI.
Great steampunk fairies running around. Fairies have discovered gloves.
Well, at least it's not gaslight punk. They're a little bit more pretentious.
So really quick,
Explosives.
I've been to a place I already said that one.
Yep.
Maleck and Sarenth will go at it. I mostly side-eye Sarenth with a few comments to communicate the alternative possibilities. You often always have minutes in your head. Like, this is very true. Like, one of the things I adore about you, Maleck, is that your mind is very scientific, even when you have minions in your head fucking telling you shit. And meanwhile, I'm like, but psychology is great, and like thinky thoughts.
Yes.
Thinky thoughts and feely feels.
Yeah, like your dynamic with Diana, Cincy, is so fucking similar. It's fucking eerie.
It's hilarious.
I appreciate it.
But so to come back to that previous comment about the not having the spirit, that I think you actually spoke on that one of the times. I don't remember when or where, but it's about trying to call in a way to try to address that would be to very carefully work with spirit allies that you have built good, healthy relationships with, to call in a spirit to become the spirit of the house if there truly isn't one. And you really got to do your due diligence on this.
Yeah,
Because
because if you fuck
and
it
it's
up, you
just
could make.
sleeping,
Yeah.
you're really gonna get fucked up.
I'm just trying to imagine a house waking up to find it's possessed.
Like I said, you're really gonna get
like I remember the Stephen King. They made the movie out of 1408, where it was basically the evil fucking hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that movie actually freaked me out a little bit because I was like looking at my own apartment weirdly after that for obvious reasons. And I'm like, it could work, but like, and my internal iPod has just decided to throw up the song of Yertle the Turtle from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and it's just, oh fuck this! I'm not going down this road anymore. There's too much in this.
This is where I think the strength of animism actually really lies, because one of the things that people will forget is that these are beings, right? With a capital B.
Yeah,
I usually say non-human persons, but
right. Yeah. But I mean, sorry, my training.
No. I'll explain later why I'm saying that phrase. But go ahead.
Okay, but the thing is, like, whether you use the term beings with a capital B or people, as terms of whether you mean non-human or human, the thing that people tend to forget is that, like, if you attribute that we all have souls, and that in my understanding of souls, there is a multipartite soul, and so Huger, which is the more logical, I am going to do these things, I am going to great. But there's also the Mooner, which is independent and its own soul. If you understand everybody is possessing at least some of this shit, this stuff gets a lot more complicated, because if you ask, do gut bacteria remember X, Y, or Z? Of course the answer is yes, because the Mooner collectively collects this shit and remembers it, even if the individual cells don't. If you ask a house, do you remember X, Y, Z? Sometimes this motherfucker will put up pictures.
Yep.
And I say this because I literally have a picture of the builder of the house that's on the front fucking door that says hi when I notice him.
Yeah.
And it's his Mooner, kind of like, in a sense, the guy is never going to fucking like totally pass away because he's living in the house. He is part of the house because he built the house, because he was a master bricklayer, and this house is a brick house. So with that logic, like, is he a land spirit? Is he a living being in the house? Yes. Animism is fucking weird, right?
It can be, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's also animism. We are working with spirits where their perspective matters, although we should not share in their perspective.
No, bring me back to that.
Yeah, we will come back to that one. But again, they don't operate from the same frame of reference, including categorization. Categorizing
that's a really good point.
Is very human.
Yep.
You know, it's a little bit easier with the urban priest stuff, because a lot of the communal song is coming from things that were created with labels before they were even built. But when you're coming into the uncultivated nature side, these are things going, labels. Okay, you call me a tree. I am a thing that spreads and grows up and down.
Oh, that's
which is completely different from a skyscraper going, yeah, somebody had something to prove, and now I'm here, and I'm going to sway in the wind and hopefully not fall on you.
Okay, so now I've got three things, so I'm going to try to not lose track of them. Okay,
Good luck.
One really quick. There's a book that I recently read that's actually really good called Why Fish Don't Exist. It's kind of a philosophy book that a person wrote doing an autobiography while writing while she learned the history of the founding president of Stanford.
Oh, interesting.
And it deals with eugenics and racism and all this other shit. And at one point, it actually comes to the point of what the title of the book is saying. Taxonomically speaking, fish do not exist.
That's fucking funny, because my brain immediately went to Catholics and beavers. But please go ahead.
If you say that a fish is a thing with this type of heart, you have to discount this particular type of fish that has a heart very much more similar to a cow than that other fish over there. But if you say a fish doesn't have lungs, now you have to rule out things like the lungfish that can breathe air, or the betta fish that will literally swim up to the surface and breathe air. If you exclude every characteristic that is not fish, you no longer have a category. If you include everything that something that is a fish has, everything in the world is fish.
Yep.
Including some plants.
Oh, that's
the
brilliant.
same can be said for trees. Taxonomically speaking, trees don't exist in the same way, because a palm tree is much closer to a grass compared to a fir tree being closer to this berry bush over here. It, like, these categories, we think
Oh God, let's
they're
not even get into the difference
meaningful
between
and
blueberries
important.
and strawberries.
And Sarenth, if you remember, and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna give the specific the name that you asked.
Oh,
Just
sweetheart, it's in me.
For
Sorry, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, I wasn't going to. But when the one of the spirits that I have primarily like spent most of my life working with,
Right.
I always referred to it as bedrock, because the way it originally worked with me was literally the bedrock poking up out of the mountains,
right,
because of erosion. And
right,
you asked me if it was ever known as
Ymir.
And I'm sitting there going, I don't know that. And I heard it go, oh, you can call me that if you want. Some people used to.
Right. And that to me is like really emblematic of, like, if you're building relationship with your local land spirits, they're going to give you shit that only makes sense to you, not because you're specially chosen, but because you're the only motherfucker actually building a relationship.
Well, it's not even that. It's not even that you're the only one.
Well, I wouldn't say only. Let me back that train up.
No. I get what you're saying, but it's the point that everyone's like, well, if it really was that spirit, it's going to show you this thing, or it's going to show what. Who the fuck are you to say what the spirit's going to do?
Right.
So I had an interesting experience when we came back, because we did North Dakota Grand Sabbath, and we decided, because it was a graduation trip gift for our middle son.
Oh, that's right.
We decided to go to Ishpeming and visit the big rocks, Ishpeming.
Right. Right.
And Ishpeming, when I got there, I heard this, I want to make it easy for you, but I would really like one of you city priest people that keep coming through here to acknowledge me as a city. Like, okay, I can do this. I can do this.
Oh, they asked you to transition from a town to a city?
No, it already was a city. It didn't need it. It wanted a city priest to acknowledge it, because several have come through and didn't do it because they had a really rigid idea about what a city is.
They wanted initiation.
No, it was already what it needed to be. It wanted recognition. That is different.
Oh.
It wanted recognition. So it's sort of like recognizing Taiwan, and I happen to be empowered to do that. Not Taiwan, obviously, but I'd totally give it if I could.
Or another example using geopolitics would be, is it Burma or Myanmar?
Myanmar. But you get the idea.
You see, but
so
like,
a lot of
that recognition.
A lot of people think a city spirit can't form, and this is kind of my fault because it is a general guideline. They can't form unless it's a minimum of 100,000 people, because usually that is the key. 100,000 people, a functioning mass transit system, and a shared identity. All a city, and this is like the components that usually are what would make up an identifiable city spirit.
Right.
The population is the least important of that criteria. Ishpeming has a very powerful shared identity among its residents, both human persons and non-human persons. And it also has a multi-generational identity where it decided to show me, and I have it up on my TikTok. It showed me 5 keys, 5 ways it presents itself to people coming through. Like one was a minor, I can't remember all of them. One was a kid on a skateboard. And like there's one that I'm supposed to leave out because it's only showing itself to certain people. But it was here are the ways I appear. Some of this is adjusted for the generations that are here and the generations that were, including one that is decidedly not human.
Is this
and decidedly not industrial?
Yeah.
So it was. I'm sorry. Go on.
I apologize. Is Ishpeming a mining town?
Yes.
Yes.
It actually has a mining.
Okay.
Ishpeming
later.
Town.
Ask me later.
Okay. It also has a lot of other aspects going on for a small town, except it's a city, and it wanted recognition as a city because city spirits and town spirits are a very different thing. Town spirits often tend to be highly integrated with the land around them. I grew up next to the first largest town in the country. Because I grew up in Northwest Indiana. Merrillville, Indiana was very greedy with the, I can't remember the technical word for it now. But they would basically go, okay, this land is part of us now. And they didn't have to do water or central garbage services. They could just claim things and get the tax base. And then I lived about 40 miles south of San Jose. Yes, it was annexation. 40 miles south of San Jose. San Jose is the second largest town. And it is more land spirit than city spirit, even though it has citified aspects. And it has all the criteria of a city. But I spent a little time living in San Jose, and it does not have a city spirit. It has several other spirits, especially land spirits and industrial spirits. But it is not a city spirit. It is too spread out. But it does have many spirits of specific neighborhoods that operate like city spirits.
So you're a city priestess. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Well, hold on one sec. This is
Go.
This is the book.
Why Fish Don't Exist
By
It's not
Lulu Miller.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right.
That'll go on my list.
All right. So I am here for you to ask questions.
As a city priestess, do you think that there is fuck the population? What is the so people think of a town as bustling, as not quite as big and busy. What really, from a spiritual perspective, differentiates a town from a city?
Collective identity.
Collective identity. A town does not have as strong of a collective identity to the point where it can become independent.
So that's hilarious to me. So
okay.
I'm asking because we have a difference between Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti, whereas Ypsilanti has more of a town feel, and Ann Arbor has more of a city feel.
All right,
and maybe that's just me feeling my feelings.
Okay, let me give you the city spirits how babies are made talk. So a group of people decide to form some kind of intentional community by living around one another.
Right.
Okay, that doesn't necessarily, especially if it's like 4 to 12 families, that's not quite enough to form an incidental egregor. Usually it takes a few hundred more.
Right.
So a town can have an egregor. It very loosely has one, but often the times it's more the land spirits that are still speaking, along with the things that come with houses. With a city spirit, they're sometimes, and with the first cities, the land spirit was immediately integrated as the city spirit. So, they were already calling the land a specific name, worshiping it as a god. Boom, city spirit's already right there. It's connected to the land.
That makes sense to me from a really historical perspective, because Ann Arbor was literally named after somebody's relative, whereas Ypsilanti was named after a war hero.
And there are distinctive energies there. And Ypsilanti is interesting because Ypsilanti, in my experience with it so far, is it operates as a crossroads.
Yes, it does, which is funny because the hero that it's referencing is Ypsilantis, which was a hero during a foreign war.
Intriguing. I need to look into that.
Yeah. So I know you've done some work with Ypsilanti as river spirits, and I would encourage that even further, because the neat thing about Ypsilantis is because of that connection to war and to fighting, it actually makes sense with the history of the Willow Run Bomber Plant, which is nearby,
Mm-hmm.
and the restaurant that has maintained itself to this day, the Bomber.
So we're going to go there the next time we visit, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. This is actually, like, I'm not kidding you. This is literally an Ypsilanti pilgrimage spot.
So
Okay.
No, the bomber is absolutely.
So here's part of it from not a city perspective to help people have a harder time with the cities and trying to rectify that. Because as we've said many times, Diana works very much with the cultivated nature. I tend to work more with the uncultivated.
And I hadn't quite finished explaining how the babies were made.
Right. I'm going to give a comparison to
This is Cindy.
this part of what you're talking about from a non-city perspective.
All right, go on.
So when you have a small grove of trees, right? It's not quite enough to be a forest. It's not quite diverse enough to say we would generally think of it in those terms.
It's
but
not
there's
quite enough
still,
to be woods. It's kind of like
not quite woods, but there's some trees over there.
Right.
There's some bushes over there. There's a creek over there, but it's not really woods. It's not really a forest, but it's forming.
Right. So that's where a town lives.
So that would be a town, could be eventually become a city or not. With a city, there's always, or again, the key component is that collective identity.
So like
people become so collective that they start creating plumbing systems. They start sharing water instead of doing well water. Shared water is a huge indicator of moving towards a city spirit, especially since most cities are built on waterways, are built on rivers.
So what I'm hearing is that Ypsilanti technically counts as a city, but it's still getting out of its township phase.
No,
its town phase. Excuse me.
No, because Ypsilanti doesn't want to be considered a city.
Oh, that's funny. So, like, the spirit of Ypsilanti is like fighting with the municipal.
The spirit of Ypsilanti keeps showing me places that it would like me to blow up a little bit because it doesn't like the pockets of misdistributed wealth.
Which always happens in cities.
I keep getting lost when I'm coming to visit you because Ypsilanti wants me to see a place it would love it if I got rid of.
Oh, that's fucking funny.
That hilariously tracks with Ypsilanti, as having lived in Ypsilanti for a number of years. That tracks with the spirit of that city, which I didn't interact with consciously, but you live there, you interact with it.
Oh, right? Yeah.
Ypsilanti, from talking and from tapping into it a little bit now, it doesn't really want to be a city. It really just wants to be a river that lets people live on its banks.
So that's actually a great segue to what I was going to say, that next comparison. So you got this big town, this big community, got this, you're starting to form a collective identity, but it's still very much based on the land. It's still very much based on all of that. So again, to think back to like the more uncultivated, so think of like the borderlands, the threshold areas. Like you look at it, you're like, yeah, that's kind of a forest. Yeah, there's some swamp there, and so it's getting enough diversity that and it's got enough territory space that I think that might be a small forest. That's about where that line is, where the Ypsilanti is, right? To keep the growth.
Honestly, the difference between Ypsilanti as a city in York Township is like it's a transition between two forests that feel very different to me.
Right. And again,
and I'm living on the edge of one, so I can the liminality is very there.
Yes. So again, that's kind of where it's at. So like a good example over here where we're at would be like Portage. Portage is very much centered on not only certain very specific pharmaceutical companies that are huge, but also on Portage Creek, which is kind of the defining land spirit here.
Right.
So this is the other thing, is Portage is very well known for a collective attitude of superiority, but even though it is a collective shared attitude, it is not a shared identity.
Yeah.
People do not have what it is because the sense of superiority makes them competitive with each other to truly form a city spirit.
Which
what-
in Ypsilanti there, what it almost sounds like already is that sense of, yeah, this little bit of extra not healthy distribution of wealth should be blown up. That you both were like, oh my god, yes, that's so us. Like,
Yeah.
there's
So I'm not
there's
sure
kind
if
of a
this
collective attitude rather than
And
identity.
a huge
It
portion
seems.
of the population of Ypsilanti is Eastern Michigan University, which is an inherently transitory population.
Okay, so universities are interesting because they form miniature spirits that operate exactly the same as city spirits.
Eastern
Except
Michigan
it
University
has
is its
to
own
be.
thing, but like Ypsilanti as a whole is really unfocused because you've got the EMU, which is kind of like trying to steal U of M's thunder, or kind of like trying to be a U of M here, but like it's not quite there, and it's not trying to steal its thunder. It's not quite the appropriate idea. It's more like, so U of M is the medical college. EMU is definitely the teaching college.
Okay.
That is what they're known for. And so EMU is trying really hard to differentiate itself and be its own thing. But like Ypsilanti as a whole feels very confused.
Again, that's a crossroads thing.
And there's
And like it's even I
There's a
think
good-
that Emily's got a pretty good analysis of it.
Ooh, let me put that up.
There's actually
Like,
two. There's actually two.
yeah. I also lived in Ypsilanti. It's very get off my lawn. That's very true. And even it's almost more so when you live closer to EMU. Having said that, I've lived on EMU.
Before you go to the next one, that part right there, the get off my lawn. How are you going to have a collective identity when part of your collective identity? And again, this is where those categories don't quite line up, and it's not neat and clean. It's more just gradients, right?
Yeah, I honestly think,
how do you have a collective identity when part of your
it's
collection
so trying
get
to
off my
differentiate
lawn?
itself? It's so hard because like
I kind of
something
get
that
it, though.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was that last bit? Diana, what was that?
So I kind of get it because that is kind of like what being an itinerary, like I am displaced from the city that I am dedicated to.
Right.
And it's going to be for a while.
Right.
And the city has not released me. I'm still San Francisco city priest. I'm not the only one, but I'm the one that San Francisco most claims for whatever reason.
Give it time.
I am on loan to Michigan, probably so I don't get squished by something falling in an earthquake.
Give it time. San Francisco is waiting for. I'm sorry to say that.
We can do this another time.
We can do this another time. Okay. And San Francisco, this is not the time to be pushing in. So have some respect.
I apologize.
No, I'm talking
So
to San Francisco.
I want to make a point that we should come back to that. What happened right there? We
Is-
need to come back and talk about that kind of happening because that was one of the things you were asking about.
Yes.
Was I?
Yeah. San Francisco tried to talk through you, and
occasionally
it gets put on timeout a lot with me because
that's legit. So really quick, let me just read this so I can get myself reoriented to human reality. I get very crossroad advice for Ypsilanti. I don't mind if you stay for a bit, but it prefers to be a Middlestone as opposed to an end destination for a cross establishment. And I agree. Like as somebody who went to Eastern Michigan University, even this school understands itself as a crossroads because we got some PhDs, but mostly what we're doing is producing people with bachelor's degrees and MSWs and things like that, so that they can go on to other things. And if it is like MSW is that's great. What we're setting you up for is so that you can effectively be in your community, so that you yourself are crossroads.
Yes. So Ypsilanti.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Remember that park you guys took me to?
Yes.
And
Frog Park.
It was like multiple bridges and multiple crossroads right by the university. And we're like, this is the place. This is what Ypsilanti wanted me to know. Hi, Emily. It's what Ypsilanti wanted me to know is it is functionally more of a crossroads than it is an integrated community. Everyone is passing through. Love you. All right, that's going to help a lot.
The filter is appreciated.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, especially since the stuff that talks to me in Sinti does not go small. I describe my work as a city priest as like going, "Hey, Godzilla, let's play fetch."
And the other thing that y'all probably aren't aware of is we have an unfortunate history with the show of Sarenth is a phenomenal channel, especially when he's intoxicated, and we have a history with the show of spirits making use of that without his consent.
I'm sorry.
Just we're talking about why it's a good thing you've got a filter on right now.
Oh, okay. I haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah, and it's better Sarenth than me because I'm a little bit reactive and will set fire to things that I should probably check.
And again, this is not a complaint, Sarenth. This is saying that is appreciated.
Yeah.
Well, we're also almost 2.5 hours in, and
Yeah.
I know that we could go much longer. Can I ask, for my own sanity, if nobody else's, can we table this conversation
Of course.
for the Discord after party?
Yes.
Of course.
If I can say one last thing.
Please do.
It was part of what you were wanting to get to.
Yes.
Originally, and we pointed at it, and then we did what we do, and we went far afield of it.
Woohoo!
It doesn't happen with Diana because the boundaries and the framework that she works within as a city priest and the type of spirit worker that she doesn't deal with that kind of possession or that
I do spirit mediation, not mediumship.
You know what? Honestly, we could do a whole other show about that, and
Right,
that's actually a really good.
I just want to
get it down to one sentence into you. Get it down to one
Okay,
sentence.
that's not realistic.
No, I love you, Cynthia, but it's not.
This comes back to that question you asked earlier of what is it like actually living with someone who does spirit work like this on the daily as a core component of their life. What you just saw happen with Sarenth, where a spirit came through with a message and we had to deal with it, and Sarenth really didn't get a lot of say in it. Guess what?
I wish I could say I'm sorry, but this is kind of what
No. This isn't an apology thing. This is that's great because it allows this point to get made and kind of be like the nailing point at the end of this is if you are going out there and putting yourself forward as a spirit worker or trying to claim the title of shaman.
Yeah.
And you do not have the training, you do not have the support. Understand, you may be driving your car when that spirit comes in.
Right.
Yep.
You may not know how to stop it. You may not have the relationship built up with the spirit to where that doesn't happen. You may be sitting down with your kid and have a spirit come in and start talking about somebody getting flayed.
And I know
this is real. This is not it is one of the greatest honors of my life that David imparted the title that he did on me. But you know what he said right after? He said, "Yep.
I am sorry I've given you such a terrible burden."
He just said sorry.
This is it. This is it.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, as well he should have.
I'm sorry.
Because he
Good
knew.
luck. Because he knew the weight of that. He knew what it was going to take. And I had a moment of, oh, fuck.
Right, because you understood. And this is like where the metal meets the meat of a lot of these interactions is not only do they make pertinent impacts in our everyday life, but it directs the course of how and where and in what way we live our lives, right? And you, Diana and Cinti, are living examples of this. Maleck and I are living examples of this.
As I'm actively negotiating with the spirits riding around you, and I'm just like, nope, absolutely not.
No, they know. I'm
No, I know, but it's a thing that where I've had to, and folks who aren't on the after party don't know this. I've had to actively threaten, I'll delete the server, I'll burn the show down. I don't care.
Nope.
Try it with me. I will.
And I mean, the thing that as a spirit worker, the thing that I really feel, even more so for you, Maleck, is how many spirits don't get their voices heard. But I say that as a spirit worker, and so like my bias is in one court, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not having to deal with my drunk ass after the party, right?
And like I feel for them, and I do, but also I have to deal
That's
with
not
the
my
fallout.
problem. Right.
Right. Like that is a them problem, not a me problem. I can help
Exactly.
as much as I can,
This
but
is
I
where
can't do everything.
this is
And
where the
I
crux of
think-
animism lies, right? Like
Yeah.
we can't live for the spirits, but the spirits also can't live for us.
Yep. And I think that's where we're going to end because we are at nearly 2.5 hours. This is one of our longest shows. I'm so sorry, folks, for.
Sorry. This is how
It
our
was been fabulous. Thank
You know what?
so
These fuckers signed up for what they did.
Yeah,
we
like-
could have kept going for hours yet, really.
Absolutely.
Except that you have a job and so do I. So
Like,
I
Well,
can't just.
this
keep-
has been fantastic. I have enjoyed this greatly.
Let's
Thank
have you back on another time where the spirits
Yes,
can
this
all
was so
talk
fun.
with each other through each other.
All right, y'all. We're gonna end the stream here. If anyone wants to, I at least will be on the after party for probably about an hour or so. And we will catch you there.
Blessings to you.